Starting now, this is Real People. Real issues. Real news. Real people.
I'm Stephanie Allensworth, and this is Real People.
This is Real People.
Hi, welcome to Real People. I'm Stephanie Allensworth. My guest today is a holistic intercessor and also an author of a book called Jesus of Nebraska. Here to tell us a little more what a holistic intercessor is Reverend Carl.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Should I call you Reverend Carl or just Carl?
Carl is fine.
Carl is fine,
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
So please tell us what exactly a holistic intercessor does.
Holistic intercessor is a term that was given to me, I suppose you can say, by spirit or through meditation, but also working with a prayer and healing group from a church. For about the last 10 years, I've been doing this same work as a medical intuitive. They would have called it a medical intuitive. But the more that I worked with this prayer and healing group, the more the term was kind of coined as a holistic intercessor, because there's a great deal of intercessing between you, for example, and spirit. And so I worked on a holistic level. So I'm a holistic intercessor, communicator, I guess you could say, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
What started you on this path?
What started me was about in 1999, 2000. Someone totally out of the blue came up to me and said, I should get into Reiki. And they said, you should get into Reiki. You'd be a great healer. And I had no idea what they were talking about. Long story short, I became a Reiki master teacher in the span of about 6 months. And from about 2000 until about 10 years ago, that's pretty much what I did for healing, was Reiki. And then I also taught people and brought them into the Reiki energy, that sort of thing. It was about 10 years ago when actually one of the Minnesota Vikings football players approached me for a Reiki healing, and we just couldn't get our schedules to sync up where I could be with him in person. And so I offered to do an absentee sort of a healing for him, and he agreed to that. Backstory is he'd had quite an injury to his knee, to where he was not supposed to play the game for at least 2 full seasons.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I started to do the routine that you do for Reiki absentee work. And instead of doing Reiki, all of a sudden I was able to see, I know this sounds really wild, but it's what happens every single time since then. I was able to see his knee from the inside, as if I was a tiny little miniature surgeon dropped into his body, and I saw with total accuracy the torn ligaments, the scar tissue, the erratic blood flow, the irritation, the everything. And at the same time, I began to witness the best thing I can describe it is the hand of God, or the hand of Christ, if you will, came in and started to fuse together the parts that were torn. And then at the same time, all the scar tissue was being dissipated and going away. And I thought, this is really unlike anything I'd ever expected to experience before. And so I called him up the next day and I said, okay, man, I did the work on you, let me know how you're doing. And I was not about to tell him exactly what my experience was, so I wasn't going to tell anybody, really. But here he was, not expected to play football for the Vikings for 2 seasons. Again, long story short, everybody's scratching their heads wondering what the heck he did and where he went to see and all that. 2 weeks, he was back on the field.
2 weeks,
2
and he was
weeks.
back on the field.
2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that
Yeah.
that happened for you, and
Yeah.
that you were able to trust that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that everybody would. So now you say it happens every time you're doing,
Every
and by
time.
the way, they call it distance healing or absentee, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah,
so
it's
you're
the same
just
thing, yeah.
you're just not in the same room.
Yeah, I don't have to be. No,
Yeah.
No, I have clients who contact me from all over the country, literally from New York to Hawaii. People have called me, and I'll do a phone healing. I'll do a phone session for them.
And you still have the vision.
Still have the vision. What I ask people to do, whether I'm live with them or on the phone, I always ask them, just tell me the one thing that's most on your mind about your health, the number one issue that you're having. And I always ask people just name one thing, because some people try to test me and say, well, just do a scan, and tell me, well, gee whiz.
Yeah.
We've all got like 100 things going on,
Yeah.
you know, and I was like, well, just pick one. Let's start from there. And so they tell me, you know, for example, I got a sore elbow, and so I'll go into this little meditation for maybe a minute or two, and I get the visual. I actually really do get the vision of what's going on in that elbow on that person. And I'll see the healing start to take place to relieve pain or mend something, whatever it is. I'll also get further information of where that came from, which could have been a sore elbow because there's something wrong with your back, something out of alignment. So then we address that getting healed at the same time, and so on and so forth. So there's always this domino effect that occurs from that one thing that you tell me, you know. There's always this domino effect that leads up to it, or this thing that you're aware of has actually led to other things as well. So all that gets taken care of in one thing, in one session. And so I talk to the person about that on the phone. I kind of like narrate what I'm witnessing with them on the phone. And another thing that kind of seals the deal on this meditation healing piece is that I'll also get information from Spirit about what they need to do to maintain the healing. Because every time a healing has occurred, or at the very least it's sparked, it's begun, but every time a healing's occurred, there's always a little something for that person to do, a little change in diet, maybe a supplement, maybe an activity, something that keeps that rolling, that keeps the snowball rolling.
Right.
You know? And so that maintains the healing. And sure enough, every single time, people are completely floored by what I've seen, and it's like some people will say, I've never told anybody that about my life. I thought this might have been a pain that was from a childhood trauma that was specifically the same thing you just told me. You know, things like that. So this is really quite a gift that comes through, and I just, best way I can describe it is just kind of open my mouth and let God come out.
Right.
You know, it's really about the best way, you know, and total surrender, total trust, total faith that this is a healing. My faith as a Christian, I believe the Holy Trinity, and that's how I picture all this. So the Holy Trinity is all a big part of, or the only part really, of this whole event. And so I witnessed these things in my meditation with a person, and sure enough, it was accurate.
And that's a rather short meditation. A 1 minute meditation to warm up. That's pretty expedient.
Yeah, it really is. It really happens very quickly. When I first started with it, I had to do quite an extensive meditation because I would argue with Spirit, you know, because there wasn't enough faith. It was like, are you sure? Yeah. I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me. And then I would say it to the person anyway, and I'd say, you know, did such and such happen to you? Is this something you haven't really gotten over yet, this and that specific thing? And they're like, yeah, how'd you know that? You know, and so the faith was developed.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, so now it's fairly quick,
So you just call them in and off you go, huh?
Yeah. I kind of get, it's kind of like those kiosk maps you see at the mall that say, you are here.
Yeah.
You know?
And here's where you need to be.
It's kind of like this, here's where the pain is, but it's because of this stuff, you know, and that's just how I kind of get the information. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And now, how many years ago did that piece happen?
This has been going on for about 10 years.
10, okay.
Since the
But you were
Minnesota
doing
Vikings.
Reiki before then?
And I was Reiki before that.
Okay.
Taught people. I did sessions. Had probably 400, 450 students altogether over the time there.
Nice.
That I brought into the Reiki.
Sure.
And I don't know how many clients I'd had from Reiki, but this came along, and it's like I haven't done a scrap of Reiki.
Oh, well,
since,
it's,
you know.
Well, I suppose so. Isn't it kind of a hybrid of the Reiki? I mean, because Reiki,
It may be.
I think when you're training, at least I know when I was training, because I did some training as well.
Yeah.
I could feel in my body certain areas.
Yeah.
Like I would get a pain in my jaw, and you know, and they would say, "Yes, my jaw is hurting." I'd grind my teeth or something like that. You know.
Right.
So
you develop that empathy.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
for someone else. Yeah.
So Has your football player, did he get the message to quit playing football if he wants to keep his knee?
That was not part of the deal.
Not
No.
part of the deal.
It's like, keep going, man. Keep running.
Keep running,
Yeah,
okay. Well,
yeah.
he must have got some super healing.
Yeah, yeah. It was pretty extraordinary. Yeah.
Well, it sounds extraordinary, and yeah, to see the hand of God in there doing what we like to call psychic surgery, maybe. You know, that's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And how long do your sessions usually take?
A lot of times they'll take 20 minutes, sometimes a half hour. Sometimes it kind of depends on the person I'm talking to. I always tell people this may take an hour. Kind of depends on you and how deep you want to get, you know. So the more I'm speaking with somebody and they're open to spending perhaps an hour at this, they may be inclined to open up some more and talk more about things and find out how much an agreement the spiritual information is with what they've experienced in their life, for example, and the pains that they've had and still have. And then there's more of a deeper explanation or understanding, really, for them of where all this stuff came from.
Yeah.
You know, and then how to nip it in the bud, you might say, get it where it started.
So you're also a reverend. What sent you in that direction? I guess I can imagine right now.
Well, it's kind of funny. It was about 20 years ago or so, 22 years ago now. A lot of people become a minister, they get into this sort of thing because they say they got a calling, right? I literally got a phone call.
Oh.
And it was a church in Minneapolis, a community church that I've been attending for some time. And they literally called me up and said, we really like the things that you say when we hear you talking to people, and you have a pretty good grasp of spirituality, the Bible, what have you, and you're really open to exploring more works of, you know, accounts of Jesus or what have you in other religions. We think you'd make a great minister. We're having a 1-month workshop. We have somebody who comes in from out of town, and we're having a 1-month workshop. So for one thing, it wasn't the online thing where you just enter your name and boom, minister. But on the other hand, it wasn't 4 years of seminary either. You know?
Right.
So, but that was just how they operated, you know. And their whole premise was that, you know, when Jesus was on the earth, he approached fishermen, tax collectors, you know, the whole gang, and said, "Follow me."
Yeah.
You know, and that was it. They didn't say, "Come and be part of what I'm teaching here after you've gone to a formal school for 4 years." You know,
Right.
It wasn't like that. You know, it was just like, "Follow me." So that's how it happened.
So speaking of Jesus, your book is Jesus of Nebraska.
Yeah,
Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, it was a joy to write. It was wonderful. It was what the book is it's a modern day telling or retelling really of the gospel of Jesus' life, but it's set in modern times, and it's set not in Nazareth but Nebraska. You know. And instead of, for example, Jesus being born in a manger in a barn somewhere because there's no room in the inn, he's actually born in the sleeper cab of a semi-truck during a blizzard in January because his dad, the handyman Joseph, and his mom, the waitress Mary, well, Mary was going into labor and it's a blizzard and his truck breaks down. And so along comes this semi on the highway and picks him up and takes him to the hospital, but Jesus is born actually while Mary's in the sleeper cab on the way to the hospital. So there's that, you know, and a variety of things, you know, for example, furthermore in the Christmas story, instead of 3 wise men from the east, there are 3 neurosurgeons from New York and Philadelphia that send gifts, flowers and money and so on, you know, to Mary while she's in the hospital.
No frankincense and myrrh?
Not really, but there's kind of the, you know, the sense of that. There's the, you know, the scent of the flowers and the gold is the gift of money and so on, you know.
Sure.
So, as Jesus grows up, I mean, it kind of goes into depth about life with Jesus growing up from birth into adulthood. So there's an account of a family vacation in the Black Hills, for example, and there's an account of visiting his cousin John, would be John the Baptist, but you know, his cousin John, and what John's doing. John loves to play in the creek and baptize, you know, stones and animals and whatever he can find. He just has this thing about splashing water on people. John later on goes off to war and he comes back as a veteran with a touch of PTSD, and that's when he really gets his ministry going, is to rile up the veterans. And he gets the veterans going in the Black Hills area. Jesus eventually comes into a realization that he's somebody who should be talking about positive things to people. And he's got a pretty good handle on the truth of life. And his whole ministry actually begins when he and Mary Magdalene, our boyfriend, girlfriend, they're at a Nebraska football game. Go Big Red, the Huskers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
The Cornhuskers, right?
Yeah. And that's actually his first miracle, is the Huskers win. So
That's funny.
no offense to Husker fans, but that's.
Well, aren't you from Nebraska
But
yourself?
I am from Nebraska.
Okay.
I'm a big Husker fan, so I can say that.
Oh,
right?
sure.
So that's his first miracle, and he stops off at the roadside in his hometown, and gradually these guys start showing up, pulling over because there's a barbecue happening, and they just show up because they smell the barbecue, they see the people, hey, what's going on? Eventually you have the 12 apostles, and they all get together. Soon they are...
and they were all truckers?
And no, you
okay,
don't have like guys that are accountants, like there would have been the tax collectors. There are guys who were fishermen, but they had like a chartered fishing tour business, that sort of thing. So basically the same walks of life as the Bible, but they all get together at a barbecue. They start talking. They think they're onto something. Hey, we should talk about the same sort of thing to the masses. Pretty soon they start doing these public engagements of inspirational speeches, basically, primarily with Jesus as the front man. Eventually they are gifted with motorcycles and become something of an evangelical biker gang called the Holy Dozen.
The Holy Dozen?
The Holy Dozen.
Okay.
And then meanwhile, behind the scenes, in the roles of Pilate and Herod from the Bible, a couple of corrupt politicians that want to see this thing end because it's really gaining momentum and people are getting a handle on the truth, and the truth ain't necessarily coming out of the world that they know, so they're trying to extinguish that. But so basically, if you know the Bible story and you read this book, you'll find, I can see how that would happen nowadays.
Yeah.
What
hiding the truth? No.
The whole premise of the whole thing, so like I said, it was a real joy to write, and it follows basically the Gospels, but totally on a twist of if this happened in America in the last generation, modern times, what people wore, what they drank, what they ate, how they got together, how they talked,
Right.
So there's a lot of Nebraska vernacular in there too.
So people from Nebraska could relate even more.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it's a very relatable
And it's available online?
It's available online. You can get it on Amazon, for example.
Okay.
I think barnesandnoble.com is carrying it direct from the publisher. They're called Ex Libris.
Oh, sure,
which is a division of Random House. Yeah. So, totally available online, or you can just send me an email.
Send you an email,
and I'll shoot you a signed copy if you like. So,
that's
of course.
lovely.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to some more of your healing right now.
Yeah.
So you do this over the phone, you do it in your home as well?
You can
and then you also attend the Arapaloozas on a monthly basis at Echo Center?
At Echo's Place,
Yeah. So you can be found there usually? Are you usually there?
I'm pretty much a fixture there,
You are, okay.
Yeah. Third Saturday of every month.
Yeah.
And I'll be there.
And you just sit right there with somebody right across from you, and you do it then.
Yeah, I have a little table I sit with, and we sit at this table.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with my legal pad, and I start taking notes of what I get through the meditation, and we talk it over. It's usually a 20-minute session. Almost everybody has a 20-minute thing. But I've taken these notes, and then at the end of the session, I give them my notes so that they can always refer to what this was.
Right.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm tempted to ask, but not on camera.
Maybe not on camera.
Let's not go there. I'm afraid what'll come out.
Too much information.
Stop. No, that's not right.
It never happened to me.
Yeah. You must be thinking of somebody else.
That's right.
So, okay, and I also know that you are potentially shopping your story here
Yeah.
for a screenplay, right?
I am, yeah, I have.
So
been
anybody out there that would be interested in,
Yes.
they can contact you via your
Yes.
email address.
Right.
I have to look, now I have to cheat. lightandup@gmail.com.
Lightandup@gmail.com.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like lighten up.
Lighten up, right, but light and up.
Light and up.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, tell me more. Tell me more. What are some of your coolest things that you've done for healings?
For healing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're all pretty extraordinary. The ones that are the most memorable for me are where the person you keep in mind they're on the phone, right? And then perhaps they're at Echo's place and they're sitting across from me. But if they're on the phone, you know how it is when you're on the phone with somebody, you can tell when they're smiling, in their voice. You can tell, kind of what their attitude is. And maybe it's more especially with this kind of work, but when I'm on the phone with somebody, I can tell when they have an attitude of, oh yeah, here's another snake oil salesman, here's another, all right, I'll try it because I've tried everything else, whatever,
Yeah.
They just kind of have that feeling, although they haven't said
At the
so much.
beginning, right?
At the beginning,
Yeah.
yeah. And so those are the people that just tell me, well, it's my knee. And I say, which one? Well, you tell me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, fine. Your left knee. Silence. And then
Well, you had a 50-50 chance there.
yeah, right. And then silence, because
Yeah.
it was right. It's the right knee. It's the correct knee, right? The left one. Silence. Okay, here's what I'm getting about your left knee, is that you had a bicycle accident probably when you were a teenager, and it's dislocated the kneecap. And what's been happening all these years as an adult, your kneecap's been floating around, and there's been even some residual granules from the pavement still under your skin. And what I see is that there's been this constant irritation, and I go into this totally from spirit, channeled, if you will, information that just comes out, And I'm just rambling on, and I'm telling them everything that I'm getting, what I see, and here's what's happening, and this is why. And by the way, this has also affected your neck, and this is because you've had a terrible time sleeping at night, and it's because your neck has been, and I just go on and on and on.
I think you're reading me right now, actually.
Is this you? Or maybe it's one of the cameramen. I don't know. But no.
It's
but
me.
anyhow.
Bicycle accident when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Screwed up my neck.
Well, I guess you're getting a session after all. Yeah, whatever. But or maybe that's what it is. But it's that sort of thing where I just start rambling on, and then it all comes out, and silence for a moment or two, and it's like, how did you know all that? Did you talk to my wife? Or did you talk to my husband? Whatever, No, totally. Seriously, haven't. Am I accurate? Does this make sense? Yeah, every word.
Yeah, right now they think everything, you're getting it from social media, like you're going and scouring back in their social media for the last 20 years, which
and I frankly don't have much of a care for social media, so rest assured, I don't. I don't research anybody. Why bother,
Yeah, well, you don't have to, obviously.
Exactly.
So,
why
you're
do
getting
that
it straight from source.
when you get it straight from where it comes from. So so those are the most extraordinary, the ones that are the hardest nut to crack.
Sure. And from skeptic to believer, if you will. Yeah.
And then those also turn out to be the ones where I'll just give you a couple of minutes and it's an hour.
Oh.
and got to bring out the tissues, and the whole bit. No, nothing wrong with that, but it's really kind of a beautiful thing when, Spirit has, I suppose, come through me and come out of my mouth, has spoken through me to that person, and this armor that they've worn all their life is suddenly falling off, and then they're open to receive.
And that's what has to happen, right?
Exactly.
It has to happen that way.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus used to say all the time, your faith has made you well. And there's a woman who just came up and touched the hem of his shirt or his garment, In my book, it's the hem of his jean jacket, but same thing. And she just says, I knew if I just touched you, I'd be made well. And he says, well, there you go. Your faith,
just knew it.
It was your faith, and you just had to do this little action, and you're healed.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Woohoo. So, that's basically what happens, and once you crack that bit of skepticism, then the faith
Yeah.
And thus the healing just flows. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was you've never had to do repeat sessions, or do you do follow-ups or maintenance sessions?
I always tell people, feel free to contact me if this doesn't work, or if you have something else that's come up, you know.
Maybe another bicycle accident.
Maybe you fell off your bike again, you know, on your way to church, or, you know. But yeah, the ones that call me back are the ones that have had something else come up. Usually when people who I've done a session with and it's cleared up all the things that they've had, you know, in their life, what have you, they'll contact me again via email or whatnot,
Excuse me.
and just kind of let me know how things are going. And they'll tell me that idea you had for combining what? Green tea with, I don't know, echinacea, whatever it may be.
Oh my gosh.
You know,
Yeah.
it really works, you know.
So you'll get hits on on homeopathic remedies as well.
Yeah.
So
I get these suggestions that I give to people, and I always kind of as a caveat, I always tell people every single person has a very specific chemistry for their body.
right.
So if you hear on TV that this supplement, this sort of thing is great for weight loss or depression or whatever, may not necessarily be so, because it depends on your particular chemistry. You know. So what I get for the person is very specific to their body, to their chemistry.
Right. Well, you know what? We are ticking down. This went so fast, I can't
already?
even believe
Gee
it.
whiz, okay.
Yeah. I know,
Already?
right?
Well.
So, I mean, we have just a couple, 15 seconds or so. So I just
sure.
want to say thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Well,
being
Stephanie,
here.
yeah,
and I'm
thank
going to
you.
stop in and see you again, because
you
that's
sure
where I ran
should.
into you. So
Yeah.
until next time, thank you for keeping it real with real people. I'm Stephanie Allensworth here with Reverend Carl.
Carl.
Thanks now.
Thank
next
you.
time.